Writes that the Eagles cheap and unfair to paint Bradford as a baby in this situation. That is the title of his column, as we'll dive into it a little bit because there has been so much polarizing discussion around Bradford. And we know here in the Delaware Valley that once you kind of portray that you don't want to be a competitor or a tough guy, they will turn your back on you very quickly, they being the fans. Mike Sielski joins the conversation. And, Mike, all week long I've kind of been, I don't want to say defending Bradford. I see his point of view. I understand. I've kind of said, Mike, to see if you agree with this as the reason for your piece, but maybe he wouldn't have signed that deal knowing what he knows. I mean, that was really my contention. Depending on what went on in that conversation, maybe he wouldn't have signed that deal. I can see why he would want to get out of here if they told him other things and then turn their back on him a little bit.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And I don't think there's any doubt that he feels like he got done dirty by the Eagles here, that he signed that deal under the pretense that he was going to have a chance to compete to be their long-term answer at quarterback, and now that chance is completely gone. You don't trade away everything the Eagles traded to get Carson Wentz and then suddenly decide, oh, Sam Bradford really is the long-term answer. Carson Wentz is going to play. And what's really bothered me is the way that the Eagles have kind of surreptitiously gone about really denigrating Bradford's character. You saw this Monday, Dave Spadaro from the team's website went on a TV show and basically said that the NFL was a big boy league and Sam needed to be a big boy and come in and play. And you've heard some other sorts of things out in the media. And, the way something like this happens is there's certain people in the media who the Eagles can leak things to, and they know they can get their message out through these kind of proxy places. And they've kind of driven the discussion here, set the narrative. Sam Bradford must be a wuss. He must be a wimp because he doesn't want to come in and compete for a job that he has absolutely no chance of winning. And, my two responses to that is, first of all, that's ridiculous because Sam Bradford came back from two knee injuries and multiple injuries before that to play. He could have walked away from football at any time over the last couple of years and made $78 million, and he didn't. So don't say he's not tough. You can say a lot of things about Sam Bradford, but you can't say he's not tough. And, and secondly, this is a business decision for Bradford. This isn't about, not wanting to compete. I'm not quite sure why Tom Kahn and his agent said that, but this is about trying to get himself in a position where he can be a starting quarterback for a while in the NFL. And if the Eagles are able to make a business decision and change their mind and draft Carson Wentz, then Sam Bradford can say, well, now that the situation's changed, my feelings have changed, and I'd rather go somewhere else.
Right. Well, that's what I was kind of laughing at is it's okay for the Eagles to change their mind, but because someone signed a contract and we're so steadfast in this world, well, you signed a contract, you need to honor it. But when it's okay for the Eagles to change their opinion of Bradford, but it's not okay for Bradford to change his opinion on their stance following some things that have changed. And I think you write about, is he afraid to compete? I don't think it shows that he's afraid to compete at all. I think he's just number one, I think you got to take the money and the skill level out of it. Everybody says, well, he stinks. He doesn't have any right to say this. His skill level and the money he makes really has no bearing on this. This is more about what he was told when he signed that deal and what happened afterwards.
Yeah, that's right. You hear that a lot. Peter King from Sports Illustrated wrote something to that effect that Sam Bradford doesn't have the right to make these kind of demands because he hasn't earned it. Well, says who? I mean, what is this? There's this. I'm not arguing that Sam Bradford is a great quarterback, but there's no. What is this arbitrary standard that someone has to meet before they decide? Oh, okay, now it's okay. Now everyone understands, and it's okay for me to look out for my own best interest. I look at it this way, Mike. Let's say you're working for 97.3, okay, and your boss has come to you and tell you, hey, Mike, listen, you're going to be our main number one talk show guy for the next year. But over that year, we're going to not spend as much money on resources and travel and getting you the best guests and giving you the best equipment to work with. And instead, we're going to take that money and give it to your successor, who's going to come in a year and a half from now. do you really think you or anybody else in your position would say, oh, I'll just take one for the team and stick with 97.3? Or do you think you'd be looking for another job? Well, the same principle applies to Sam Bradford. It's exactly the same principle, and that's one of the more mystifying things to me, is that the very people who are complaining about what Bradford is doing would do exactly the same thing and have done exactly the same thing in their own careers.
Yeah, and one of the things that a lot of fans and myself have battled on this week is, and I think you agree, and I think you kind of said it, to me, they say, well, if you go out there and just play well, then you win your job. Go out there and prove it. The deck is stacked against him. It doesn't matter how well he plays. They gave up too much to make this kid sit. So if they said, we're picking a guy at number 2, to me, Bradford doesn't sign that deal. Now, if they say we're picking a guy at 13, they didn't trade 5 picks to get up. So they are less inclined to play number 13. But number 2, when you give up 5 picks, Bradford basically has no chance to prove to the Eagles to keep him.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, this is not a situation where Aaron Rodgers falls to you with the 24th overall pick and you already have Brett Favre. This is not 1999 where you're bringing in Doug Peterson to be a stopgap guy until Donovan McNabb is ready, and you already had the number 2 overall pick. So you didn't have to give up any resources to get McNabb. The Eagles sacrificed assets that could, in theory, help Bradford in the here and now to go get the guy who everybody acknowledges is going to replace him. So if you're Sam Bradford, it's natural to feel, that you got kind of screwed in this regard. Now, people can say, well, he signed a 2-year contract. He should have known what was coming. Well, the contract he signed, it's 2 years, but he's not being paid like a placeholder. Chase Daniel's being paid like a placeholder, and he's being even paid probably too much for a second or third string quarterback. But Sam Bradford's going to make $22 million in guaranteed money over the next 2 years. He wasn't paid like a guy who was just going to hold the spot until Carson Wentz was ready. He was paid like a guy who the Eagles initially thought, we're going to, if we have to, this guy's going to be our starter, and maybe he can be the long-term answer. And then something happened. They signed Bradford early in March, and by the end of March, when they finally worked out Wentz, suddenly things changed.
Yeah, and I think you said right there the long-term answer, because people keep saying, well, if he plays well, he has the chance to go someplace else, so he can prove it to somebody else. But his agent has kind of indicated that's fine and dandy. He'll make more money someplace else, but he doesn't want to be that guy. He doesn't want to be a mercenary. He would like to be here. And I've kind of described it, Mike, as he signed that deal, as you said, a prove-it deal, which is now turned into a bridge deal.
Yeah, that's 100% right. Look, one of the things that Bradford has made clear since he came to the Eagles was that he wanted some stability here. He wanted to be able to stay in one place. No more changing of offensive coordinators, no more changing of offensive linemen. Let's settle in. Give me a shot to be the guy. You don't come back from 2 torn knee injuries and last year a concussion and a sprained AC joint and what that guy's come back from to just hold a place. He wants a shot to show that he can be a franchise quarterback. And it's the exact opposite of he doesn't want to compete. He wants a fair shot. And look, this has nothing to do with what kind of quarterback Sam Bradford is. I'm certainly not arguing that he's a great quarterback. I'm not arguing that he had a great season last year. I'm not saying any of that. And if you're an Eagles fan, and I get that Eagles fans are looking at this and saying, this guy sucked for us, and now he wants to hold out and ruin everything for us. I get it. They're emotionally attached to the team. That's fine. But I'm looking at this from more of an outsider's perspective. And from an outsider's perspective, I completely understand what Bradford is thinking and what he wants to do here. And I especially don't like the way the Eagles are going about trying to tar him and smear him as a guy who doesn't want to compete and is a weenie and a wuss and kind of playing on the lowest common denominator of Philly sports fans. It doesn't take much for us to look at a guy and say, he can't play here, he's not tough enough. Well, newsflash, guys, Sam Bradford is plenty tough for anybody, okay? He ain't the world's greatest quarterback, but he's pretty tough.
Yeah, and, I guess the question really becomes, because let me ask you, Mike, I was at the game, I guess they played Arizona, and he got knocked out for a play. Sanchez came in. They booed. Bradford came back. They cheered. They won that game against New England. It seemed that he was winning the fans over a little bit, that they were starting to say, you know what, maybe this guy is a little something. Those last couple of games that we keep famously hearing about. Then when they made the trade 2 weeks ago, it seemed that people were on Bradford's side, that we didn't really need to make this trade. They should have given him a chance. And then he says this, and they have just turned on him immediately. Can he win these guys back, or is this marriage too fractured?
I'm not sure he can, because Carson Wentz may very well turn out to be a tremendous quarterback. He's going to have to be to justify what the Eagles gave up and kind of the condition of the team they're in now to justify making this move. But put that aside for a second. Right now, Carson Wentz is the shiny new thing. He's the number 2 overall pick in the draft. He has all this promise of being a great quarterback. Whether he is or is not going to be that quarterback, who the heck knows? But that's what fans like. They want meaning. They want something that matters. And Carson Wentz matters now, and Sam Bradford doesn't.
Sure does. He does matter. He's the new face of the franchise, I guess they could say. And in the end here, as you write, that the Eagles are cheap and unfair. Just to mention that you're not talking monetarily, correct? The word cheap.
Oh no. Yeah.
I know that
the
people.
Headline is a business lead.
Yeah.
By cheap, I mean
taking low blows.
Yeah, exactly. Taking the easy way out by painting him as a sissy.
And that is what basically he is being pictured as at this point right now, and we'll see where it goes for him. Mike Sielski, read the full column at Philly.com, the Philadelphia Inquirer. Mike Sielski, columnist here on the Sports Bash. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.